The Gift of Fear by Gavin de Becker. Picture this. A young woman named Kelly is hauling groceries up 4 flights of stairs, her arms screaming under the weight. She's intentionally overloaded herself because walking around after dark? Not happening. Just as she reaches the 3rd landing, disaster strikes. One paper bag surrenders, and suddenly cans of cat food are bouncing down the stairs like they've got somewhere better to be. Then a voice floats up from below. "Got it! I'll bring it up." Something about that voice makes Kelly's skin crawl. She can't put her finger on it, but it just sounds wrong. A second later, though, here comes this perfectly normal-looking guy, cheerfully collecting her runaway cans. "Let me give you a hand," he says, flashing a smile. No, thanks, I've got it," she tells him. He doesn't stop. "You don't look like you've got it." Then he adds, almost casually, "I'm going to the 4th floor, too." He reaches for one of her heavier bags. She tries again. "No, really, thanks, but no." He grips the bag tighter. "There's such a thing as being too proud, you know." Kelly hesitates, just for a heartbeat, and then she lets go. In that single moment, as the grocery bag passes from her hands to his, everything changes. Control shifts. And it's not just about the groceries anymore. This scene opens one of the most vital books ever written about personal safety. It's called The Gift of Fear, written by Gavin de Becker, and it became a #1 national bestseller. But not because it teaches you self-defense moves or how to handle a can of pepper spray. It became essential reading because it teaches you something far more powerful: how to listen to a voice that's already inside you. Gavin de Becker isn't your typical security expert. For decades, his firm has been protecting governments, celebrities, and major corporations by doing one thing exceptionally well: predicting human violence. He advises on threats against Supreme Court justices, movie stars, and regular people who suddenly find themselves in danger. But his expertise didn't come from a classroom. It came from surviving a childhood marked by brutality and chaos, a world where learning to predict dangerous behavior wasn't optional. It was survival. He calls it his Academy of Prediction. And here's the central promise of his book: you're already an expert too. You were born with a brilliant internal guardian, a survival system refined over millions of years of human evolution. We dismiss it as a gut feeling, a hunch, or intuition. But it's not mystical. It's not random. It's a gift, the gift of fear. Today, we're going to explore that gift together. By the end, you'll understand the subtle signals that dangerous people send, and you'll discover why that quiet, persistent feeling in your gut is the most sophisticated safety system you'll ever own. Every creature in nature comes equipped with remarkable defenses. Turtles have shells, bees have stingers. We humans didn't get the sharpest claws or the most powerful jaws. Instead, we got something better: the biggest brains. And with those brains comes an extraordinary ability that we constantly underestimate: intuition. Gavin de Becker built his entire career on one simple, powerful truth. Intuition isn't some mystical, wishy-washy feeling you can choose to ignore. It's your most sophisticated thinking process, happening at lightning speed below your conscious awareness. It's like jumping from A to Z without touching any of the letters in between. It's knowing something without knowing why you know it. Think about driving through traffic. Every minute, you're making thousands of split-second predictions. You read the slight head movement of a stranger 100 feet away and somehow know it's safe to pass in front of their 2-ton vehicle. You do this without even thinking about it. That's intuition at work, constantly scanning your environment and comparing what it sees against a massive internal database built from every experience you've had, every story you've heard, every movie you've watched. Here's a stunning example. A pilot named Robert Thompson walked into a convenience store one day and was suddenly hit with overwhelming fear. He couldn't explain it. Nothing looked obviously wrong. But he turned around and walked straight back out. Later that day, he learned that a police officer had walked into that same store moments after he left and was shot and killed during a robbery. When de Becker asked him what he noticed, Thompson initially said, "Nothing, it was just a gut feeling." But as he thought about it, the pieces emerged. The clerk had given him a quick, nervous glance, but kept his attention locked on another customer. That customer was wearing a bulky, heavy jacket despite the hot weather, perfect for concealing a shotgun. And outside, a car was idling with two men sitting inside, engine running. None of these details meant anything by themselves, but his intuition processed all of them in a fraction of a second and delivered one crystal-clear message: get out. Now. That message was the gift of fear. So if we all have this brilliant internal guardian, why do people become victims? The answer, de Becker says, comes down to one powerful enemy: denial. We're the only creatures in nature who sense danger and then try to talk ourselves out of it. A wild animal that detects a threat doesn't pause to think, it's probably nothing. But we do, all the time. A woman waiting for an elevator sees a man inside who makes her uncomfortable. Her intuition sends a clear warning signal. But what does she do? She tells herself, I'm being silly. I don't want to be rude and let the door close in his face. So she steps into a soundproofed metal box with a stranger she's afraid of. Denial is a save now, pay later scheme. It offers momentary comfort by telling us everything's normal when our intuition is screaming that it's not. The tragic story of China Leonard and her young son Richard shows the devastating price of ignoring that voice. Richard was scheduled for minor ear surgery. When the anesthesiologist Dr. Verbruge entered the room, the boy went silent and wouldn't look at him. China felt it too. A powerful, undeniable thought: cancel the operation. But she immediately started reasoning it away. You can't judge a doctor by personality, she told herself. St. Joseph's was one of the best hospitals in the state. She had to assume he was competent. She successfully overruled her intuition, and the operation proceeded. Richard died during the procedure. Later, it came out that the doctor's colleagues had been worried about him for months. Some had even reported seeing him appear to sleep during surgeries. China and Richard didn't know these details, but their intuition knew something was terribly wrong. They received the signal. They just didn't listen. To truly honor the gift of fear, we need to recognize the signals of violence. De Becker explains that predators, whether they're planning to rob, assault, or manipulate someone, almost always conduct a subtle interview before they strike. They're testing you, searching for someone vulnerable, someone who will let them take control. But here's the thing. The very methods they use to gain your trust are actually the warning signals themselves. Let's return to Kelly and her groceries. The man who approached her was an expert interviewer. He used a series of predictable strategies, and once you learn them, you'll spot them everywhere. First comes forced teaming. This is when a stranger tries to manufacture an instant connection by projecting a shared experience where none exists. The man told Kelly, I'm going to the 4th floor too, and later, we've got a hungry cat up there. Notice the word we. He's creating an artificial partnership, making it feel rude to reject him. But this isn't coincidence. It's deliberate manipulation. The defense? Refuse the partnership. A simple, firm statement like, I didn't ask for your help, makes it clear you don't accept the team. Next, he deployed charm and niceness. De Becker reminds us that niceness isn't a character trait, it's a strategy of social interaction. People seeking to control others almost always present as nice at first. Charm isn't something you are, it's something you do. It's an action designed to compel and control through appeal. When you consciously tell yourself, "This person is trying to charm me," instead of "This person is charming," you can see what's really happening. He also used too many details. When people tell the truth, they don't feel doubted, so they don't pile on extra information. But when people lie, even if their story sounds believable to you, it doesn't sound believable to them, so they keep talking. The man told Kelly he was late because of a broken watch, "Not my fault," and launched into an odd story about a cat he once forgot to feed. These details are meant to distract you, to make you lose sight of the context. This is a stranger who approached you uninvited. Another tactic is typecasting. This is labeling you with a mildly critical quality, hoping you'll feel compelled to prove them wrong. When Kelly hesitated about the bags, he said, "There's such a thing as being too proud, you know." Instantly, she's on the defensive, wanting to prove she's not too proud, so she lets him help. The best defense against typecasting? Silence. By not engaging, you refuse to play the game. He also engaged in loan sharking, offering unsolicited help to create a sense of obligation. By insisting on carrying her groceries, he put her in a position where she owed him something, making it much harder for her to refuse him entry to her apartment later. The defense is remembering two facts. He approached you, and you didn't ask for help. Then comes one of the most reliable signals, the unsolicited promise. When Kelly hesitated at her apartment door, he said, "I'll just put this stuff down and go. I promise." A promise isn't a guarantee. It's a persuasion tool used to overcome doubt. The very fact that he felt the need to make a promise tells you he could see you weren't convinced. Your intuition had already signaled doubt, and his promise was a direct response to it. When someone makes an unsolicited promise, immediately ask yourself, why does this person need to convince me? Finally, and most critically, comes discounting the word no. No is a complete sentence, and it's a word that must never be negotiated. The person who refuses to hear it is trying to control you. Kelly told the man no several times. He ignored her. When she finally gave in, she taught him that her no wasn't absolute. She signaled that he was in charge. Refusing to hear no is a universal warning sign, whether it's from a stranger on a stairwell, a date who won't leave, or a spouse who won't accept a breakup. It clearly signals that someone refuses to relinquish control. These signals aren't limited to encounters with strangers. They appear in all types of relationships where one person seeks to dominate another. De Becker explores this in contexts like stalking, workplace violence, and most disturbingly, domestic abuse. He tells the story of Mike and Jackie, a couple who had a brief, polite conversation with an energetic young man named Tommy at a seminar. Tommy became convinced they were going to go into business with him. He started calling Mike constantly. At first, Mike tried being polite, trying to let him down easy. He made excuses, offered vague future possibilities. "If my agent Marlene leaves, I'll call you," and engaged in conversations he didn't want to have. What Mike didn't realize is that for someone like Tommy, any contact is fuel. If you tell someone no 10 times, you're still talking to them 9 more times than you wanted to. Every returned phone call, every explanation, every negotiation teaches the persistent person that their efforts are working. The situation escalated. Tommy started leaving angry, threatening messages. Mike wanted to do something, confront him, make him stop. But De Becker explains a critical rule for dealing with unwanted persistence. The way to stop contact is to stop contact. You cannot reason with an unreasonable person. The only way for Tommy to move on was for Mike to become a complete dead end. No response, no reaction, nothing. Only then would the fire run out of fuel. This dynamic of control and refusal to accept rejection sits at the heart of the most predictable and most common form of murder in America: spousal homicide. De Becker uses the O.J. Simpson case as a powerful public example of a pattern that plays out in private homes every single day. He provides a list of 30 warning signs for domestic violence escalating to murder. Many appeared in Simpson's behavior toward Nicole. For example, the man rushes the relationship at the beginning. He's verbally abusive. He's intensely jealous, demanding she account for all her time. He refuses to accept rejection. And crucially, the woman herself has intuitive feelings that she's at risk. Nicole Brown Simpson told many people she believed O.J. would kill her. De Becker makes a sobering point. 75% of women murdered by their partners are killed after they leave. It's the final loss of control, the ultimate rejection, that triggers the worst violence. This leads to a critical and controversial discussion about restraining orders. While they can be effective for a reasonable person with low emotional investment, for a deeply obsessed and controlling man, a restraining order can be the catalyst that pushes him over the edge. It represents a public declaration of his failure to control her, a humiliation he cannot tolerate. The book is filled with tragic stories of women murdered by men they had court orders against. This doesn't mean a woman should never get one, but it must be a carefully considered choice, not an automatic reaction, and it must be accompanied by a real safety plan, not just a piece of paper. So what's the ultimate purpose of all this knowledge? Is it to make us live in constant fear? Absolutely not. It's the exact opposite. The final and most important lesson of the book is understanding what true fear actually is. Real fear is a gift. It's a powerful, energizing survival signal that sounds only in the presence of danger. It's not the same as worry or anxiety, which are fears we manufacture in our minds about things that might happen. True fear is a response to something happening right now. Remember Kelly? After she let her attacker into her apartment, she endured a horrific 3-hour ordeal. But there came a moment when everything changed. He got dressed, looked at his watch, and then, for no apparent reason, closed the bedroom window. He promised he wouldn't hurt her and said he was just going to the kitchen for a drink. In that instant, Kelly was flooded with profound and absolute fear. Her intuition screamed, "Why would a man about to leave close the window?" He was worried about noise. Why was he going to the kitchen? She heard him opening drawers. He was looking for a knife. She knew he was going to kill her. This wasn't anxiety. This wasn't worry. This was pure, undiluted, life-saving fear. And it wasn't paralyzing. It was energizing. The moment he left the room, her body took over. She stood up, wrapped a sheet around herself, and silently followed him down the hall like a ghost right behind him. As he turned toward the kitchen, she turned into the living room, walked out her front door, and went straight into her neighbor's unlocked apartment across the hall, saving her own life. That is the gift of fear. It's a powerful ally that says, "Do what I tell you to do." When you learn to trust it, you don't need to walk around in a state of constant, manufactured worry. You can relax, knowing your internal guardian is always on watch. You can trust it will sound the alarm when, and only when, there's a real reason. Living a life free of unwarranted fear isn't about being blind to danger. It's about being so confident in your ability to recognize real danger that you don't have to spend your life imagining it. When you finish a book like The Gift of Fear, it changes how you move through the world. You start noticing the subtle currents of human interaction in ways you never did before. It's a book that doesn't add to your fears, but rather gives them a name, a context, and a purpose. In a world louder and more distracting than ever, Gavin de Becker's core message is a call to listen to the quiet, ancient wisdom residing within each of us. The most powerful lesson for me is the distinction between true fear and worry. We live in a culture that profits from our anxiety. News headlines, social media, even our own imaginations create a constant hum of things that could go wrong. De Becker cuts through that noise with a simple, profound truth. Real fear is a response to present danger, while worry is a story we tell ourselves about a future that hasn't happened. Worry is a misuse of the imagination. He teaches us that our intuition is our greatest asset, but it can only work if we let it. We have to be willing to feel uncomfortable. We have to be willing to appear rude. We have to give ourselves permission to put our safety above someone else's opinion of us. That nagging feeling, that hesitation, that quiet sense that something is off, that isn't a flaw in our thinking. That is our thinking, operating at its highest and fastest level. So how can we start applying this wisdom in our own lives right now? Here are 3 simple actions you can take. First, for the next week, become an observer of your own intuition. Keep a small notebook or a note on your phone. Whenever you get a gut feeling, a sense of unease about a person, a hesitation before making a decision, a sudden curiosity about something that seems out of place, just write it down. Don't analyze it or judge it. Simply acknowledge the signal. This simple act of noticing is the first step toward building trust with your internal guardian. Second, practice the art of no. Find a low-stakes opportunity in the coming days to say no cleanly and without explanation. When a cashier asks if you want to sign up for a store credit card, or a salesperson asks if you need help, just smile and say no thank you. That's it. Don't add, because I'm in a hurry, or because I already have one. Feel the clarity and power in that complete sentence. It's a muscle, and it needs exercise in small ways so it's strong when you need it for big things. And third, separate perception from judgment. The next time you meet someone new, consciously try to just observe them without immediately labeling them. Instead of thinking, "He seems nice," think, "He is smiling. He is offering lots of details about himself. He is using the word we." This keeps you in a state of perception, allowing your intuition to gather data without being shut down by a premature conclusion. That was a summary of The Gift of Fear by Gavin de Becker. We've journeyed through its core ideas today, but I'll be honest with you, a summary can only ever be a map. The real treasure is found when you explore the territory yourself. The true power of this book emerges in the quiet moments of reading, when a particular story or a simple phrase connects with your own experience in a way you never expected. This summary is your guide to decide if this book deserves your time. If anything we've talked about today has struck a chord, I encourage you to pick up a copy. Reading it isn't just about gaining knowledge. It's an experience that can fundamentally change your relationship with fear and empower you to live with greater confidence and peace of mind. A link to the book is in the description. Also, if you found this summary valuable, I would be grateful if you'd hit that like button and subscribe to our channel, Billionaire's Bookshelf. It helps us continue our mission of exploring these life-changing books, and it ensures you won't miss our next journey. Let's keep learning and growing together.